we will continue the topic of photosynthesis.
You know, when you look at a truly giant tree, have you ever stopped to think, where does all that tree actually come from? All the wood, the bark, the leaves, it can't all be from the dirt, right? Well, the answer is one of the most amazing processes on our planet, and we're going to break it all down. Let's dive in. And that really is the big question, isn't it? How does something as light and intangible as a sunbeam get turned into the solid, heavy stuff of a massive tree? I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a fantasy novel, but it's pure chemistry, and it's happening all around us, all the time. It really all boils down to this one simple fact. You, me, pretty much all life on this planet, we're running on solar power. The sun is our ultimate battery, and photosynthesis is the incredible charging cable that plugs that energy right into our world. To get this, you just have to know the two main teams in the game of life. On one side, you've got the autotrophs, or what we call producers. Think of plants. They're the ultimate self-starters, literally making their own food from the air. And then there's everybody else, the heterotrophs, or consumers. And yep, that includes us. We survive by eating the food that the producers so kindly made for us. So where does all this magic happen? To find the real source, we've got to zoom in, like way, way in. We're going to take a journey from the forest floor right down to the molecular level, inside the green engine of our planet. Okay, so our first stop is the leaf. You can basically think of it as the plant's solar panel. Its whole design is about catching as much sunlight as possible. But the real factory isn't the leaf itself. No, we've got to go deeper. Let's peel back the surface of that leaf. Inside, we hit the mesophyll tissue. This whole layer is just packed to the brim with the specialized cells that do all the heavy lifting for photosynthesis. We're definitely getting warmer. And now we zoom in on just one of those cells. See all those little green discs floating around in there? A single one of these cells can have 30 or 40 of them. This is what we're looking for. And here we are. This little guy is a chloroplast. This is the microscopic factory floor where sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide are taken apart and reassembled into sugar and oxygen. This is where all the action is. Now, inside this tiny factory, there are two main departments. First, you've got the thylakoids. See those stacks of green sacks that kind of look like pancakes? This is the power generation station, where light gets captured. And all around them is the stroma. That's the fluid-filled space. Think of that as the assembly line, where the sugar is actually put together. So see photosynthesis isn't just one thing. It's really two separate processes that work together perfectly. First, you have the light reactions, the photo part of the name. That happens in the thylakoids, and its job is to capture solar energy. Then you have the Calvin cycle, the synthesis part. That happens in the stroma, and its job is to actually build the sugar. It's like a power plant fueling a factory. All right, let's break down that first stage. How in the world does a plant actually grab a hold of a sunbeam and turn it into usable power? This is where chemistry gets really, really cool. The whole point of these light reactions is to create two super important high-energy molecules, ATP and NADPH. The best way to think of these is as the cell's own rechargeable batteries. Sunlight comes in, charges them up, and then that energy gets sent over to the sugar-building factory in stage 2. So we can boil it down to 3 key steps. First, the green stuff, chlorophyll, grabs the light energy. Second, and this is just incredible, that energy is used to literally rip water molecules apart. This is what releases oxygen into the air. Yeah, the oxygen we breathe is just a waste product here. And third, the energy from that split gets stored in our little battery molecules, ATP and NADPH. But hold on a second. That's a huge deal, that the oxygen comes from water. For a long, long time, everyone thought it had to come from the carbon dioxide. So how did scientists finally crack the case? It's actually a brilliant piece of scientific detective work. It was so clever. What they did was use a special, heavy version of oxygen, an isotope called oxygen-18, to act as a tracer. They gave the plants water that was made with this heavy oxygen. And guess what? The oxygen gas the plant breathed out was also heavy. That was the smoking gun. It proved once and for all that the air we breathe comes from the water plants drink. Okay, so our batteries are fully charged up. Now it's time for stage 2, putting that energy to work. This is the synthesis in photosynthesis. It's called the Kelvin cycle. This is how the world gets built. Now we're in the stroma, that fluid-filled space inside the chloroplast. This whole process is about building things up, taking simple molecules and making something complex. It takes those charged-up batteries from the light reactions and caches them in to power the sugar assembly line. And this assembly line runs in 3 main phases. First is carbon fixation, where CO2 from the air literally gets grabbed and locked into place. Second is reduction. This is where the ATP and NADPH batteries are spent to turn that CO2 into a little 3-carbon sugar called G3P. This stuff is the basic building block for everything else the plant makes. And finally, regeneration, where the starting machinery gets reset so the cycle can just keep on spinning.
But building stuff isn't free. It costs energy. And you can see here, to make just one of those G3P sugar molecules, the cell has to spend 9 ATP and 6 NADPH molecules. It's a really energy-intensive job, which is exactly why plants need so much sunlight to begin with.
Okay, we've been deep in the weeds of the molecular factory. Let's zoom all the way back out and talk about why any of this matters. What are the massive, planet-wide consequences of this tiny little engine?
This whole incredible process really only makes 2 main things, but these 2 products literally created the world as we know it. First, you get sugar. That little G3P molecule is the foundation of pretty much every food chain on the planet. And second, oxygen. Remember, it's just a waste product to the plant, but it completely transformed our atmosphere and made it possible for us to be here. And this is what it's all for. Every single plant you see here is running this process. And every animal, every insect, every fungus living in this forest is, one way or another, being powered by the sugar that's being made from sunlight right here, right now. This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? It is absolutely no exaggeration to say that this one single biological process is what feeds, builds, and powers almost the entire living world. So in the end, it's all connected, from a single photon of light all the way to a global biosphere. Photosynthesis is the link. This tiny, ancient, molecular engine chugging away inside a microscopic chloroplast literally powers our entire world. It builds our food, and it creates the very air we breathe. Which leaves us with a pretty important final question. What happens if we break it?
Thank you. Disclaimer. Artificial intelligence, AI, was used in the development of selected instructional materials in this lesson. The use of AI is intended to enhance clarity, visualization, and learning engagement. While all academic content has been reviewed and guided by the instructor,